The wind screamed that night. It wasn't just howling through the trees. It was screaming, like something alive, angry, and desperate. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the old town of Bridgefield for just a second, and in that second, everyone saw it. The thing standing on the roof of the abandoned courthouse. It had no face, only a gaping hole where one should have been, and yet, you could feel its stare. Children hid under their beds. Dogs barked madly and then went silent. People locked their doors, but deep down they all knew locks wouldn't stop it. It had returned after many, many years. Inside one of the houses, a little girl pointed out the window. "Mom," she whispered, "it's watching us again." Her mother turned slowly, heart pounding. "Don't look at it," she said. But it was too late. The lights flickered once, twice, and went out. The screams began before the thunder even hit. That was the night Bridgefield learned that what had happened 50 years ago, what they thought was gone, had only been sleeping. And now, it was awake again. 50 years earlier, in 1975, Bridgefield was a small, happy town. Everyone knew everyone. The sheriff, Henry Coleman, was known for his kind heart and his bad coffee. Kids rode their bikes past the courthouse every morning, and the old bell tower would ring at noon. Life was simple, peaceful, until the disappearances began. It started with a young woman named Alice Moore. She was last seen walking home from the diner after her night shift. The next morning, her shoes were found in the middle of the road, laces tied neatly, but no sign of her. A week later, a teenage boy vanished from his family's barn. Then another. People began whispering that the town was cursed. Sheriff Coleman didn't believe in curses. He believed in people doing bad things. But the strange part was that the victims weren't connected. They came from different parts of town, different families, different ages. Then one night, something happened that even Sheriff Coleman couldn't explain. He was driving along Maple Road when he saw a figure standing in the fog, a woman in a white dress. She was barefoot, her head tilted slightly as if she were listening. Coleman slowed down and rolled his window down. "Are you all right?" he called out. She didn't answer. He stepped out of his car, the fog wrapping around him like a blanket. "Miss, you shouldn't be out here at." The woman turned. Her face was wrong. Her mouth was there, but where her eyes should have been were only dark holes, deep, endless holes. Coleman stumbled back, hand on his gun, but his legs wouldn't move. The woman tilted her head and whispered something. Her voice was soft, almost like a child's, but what she said made his blood freeze. "Do you remember me?" He fired his gun. Once, twice. When the fog cleared, she was gone. Only his own echo answered him. From that day, Sheriff Coleman changed. He stopped sleeping. He stopped smiling. He carried a small notebook everywhere and wrote in it constantly, even when no one was talking to him. When people asked what he was writing, he only said, "It's coming back." It never really left. Years passed, and the story became a rumor. People forgot. Kids made jokes about the faceless woman of Bridgefield. They told ghost stories around campfires and dared each other to walk past the courthouse at midnight. No one ever did. At least, not until October 31st, 50 years later. That night, the courthouse bell rang for the first time in decades. Nobody had touched it. The whole town heard it. 12 slow chimes. Midnight. Then the power went out across the entire town. In a small house near the edge of the woods, a boy named Ethan Jacobs woke up to the sound of someone whispering his name. "Ethan." He sat up in bed. "Mom." No answer. He got up, flashlight in hand, and walked to his window. The wind howled, but there, just outside, near the old oak tree, stood a tall shadow. Its head turned slowly toward him. Ethan stepped back, heart racing. The figure began to move closer, one step at a time, silent except for the crunch of leaves beneath its feet. He dropped his flashlight. It rolled across the floor, flickering, lighting up his trembling hands. And then he heard it. The sound his grandfather once told him he'd never forget. The sound that started it all. The whisper. Ethan's heart almost stopped. The voice seemed to come from inside his room, not outside the window. His hands shook as he picked up the flashlight and aimed it toward the glass. Nothing. The yard was empty. The tree swayed in the wind, branches scratching the house like fingernails. He took a step back, breathing fast. "It's just a dream," he whispered. "Just a dream." But then he noticed something. Fog was slipping in through the tiny crack under his window. A slow, white mist crawling across his bedroom floor. It curled around his feet, cold as ice. "Mom," he yelled, running toward the door. The hallway was dark. The power was still out, and the only light came from the moon shining through the living room window. "Mom, Dad." He rushed into their room, but the bed was empty. The blankets were twisted, the lamp knocked over. The window was open wide, curtains blowing in the wind. Something was very wrong. Ethan grabbed his phone. No signal. He tried calling again anyway, but all he heard was static and a faint whisper behind it, his own name. He dropped the phone. That was when he heard the sound outside, the old courthouse bell ringing again. Once, twice, 3 times. Ethan looked out the window and saw people standing in the streets. His neighbors. Dozens of them, frozen in place, all facing the courthouse. None of them moved. None of them spoke. He pressed his face to the glass. "Hey, Mr. Harris, can you hear me?" No answer. Then, slowly, all of them turned their heads toward him, every single one. Their faces pale, their eyes completely black. Ethan stumbled backward. No. Downstairs, the front door creaked open on its own. He crept down the steps, flashlight shaking in his hand. "Mom." His voice was barely a whisper now. The air smelled old, like dirt and rain mixed with something rotten. He reached the bottom of the stairs and saw footprints on the floor. Bare feet, wet, leading from the door into the living room. Lightning flashed outside, and for a second, he saw her, the faceless woman, standing by the couch, her head tilted, her long hair hanging like soaked threads. Her mouth was moving, but there was no sound. Ethan couldn't breathe. The flashlight flickered in his hand. Then she took a step forward, and another. He turned and ran, bolting through the kitchen toward the back door. But when he opened it, the fog was waiting for him, thick and alive. He couldn't see a thing beyond it. He slammed the door shut and backed away, heart racing. He could hear footsteps now. Slow, wet footsteps coming from the hallway. He looked around for a weapon, anything. His eyes landed on a metal fire poker by the fireplace. He grabbed it and held it tight, whispering to himself, "Please, wake up, please." The footsteps stopped. The house went completely silent. Then, from behind him, a voice said softly, "Ethan." He spun around and screamed. But it wasn't the woman. It was Sheriff Henry Coleman. Only, he looked wrong. His uniform was old, covered in dust. His eyes were pale and empty, his badge tarnished. "You shouldn't be here, son," he said in a flat, hollow voice. "She remembers everything." Ethan's voice trembled. "Who are you talking about? What's happening?" The sheriff stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the floor. "She came back for what we took from her." Before Ethan could ask another question, the sheriff reached out, and his hand passed straight through the wall. Then his body flickered like smoke, fading away. The bell outside rang again. Ethan ran to the window and looked toward the courthouse. The building was glowing faintly in the fog, like it was breathing. Its broken windows pulsed with light, and the door stood wide open. He could see figures moving inside, shapes that looked like people but bent and twisted, climbing the walls and crawling along the ceiling. Then the light in the courthouse blinked 3 times. And in that same moment, every light in Ethan's house flicked on at once. The mirrors on the walls cracked. The TV turned on by itself, showing static. The voice came through again, whispering clearly now, "You can't stop it, Ethan. It's been waiting for many years." The fog outside began to rise, covering the houses, the cars, the street. One by one, the lights in the neighborhood went dark again. Ethan grabbed his backpack, stuffed in a flashlight, batteries, and his dad's old camera, and ran for the door. He didn't know where his parents were, but he had to find answers. He had to go to the courthouse. The moment he stepped outside, the air went dead silent. The wind stopped. Even the crickets were gone. He took a step forward and felt the ground move. Something was under the dirt, crawling. He froze. The road cracked open just a few feet ahead of him. A hand, thin, gray, and shaking, pushed through the earth. Then another, and another. Dozens of hands began clawing their way up from the ground, dirt flying everywhere, reaching for his feet. Ethan screamed and stumbled back as the first one pulled itself free. Its face was nothing but empty holes where eyes and mouth should have been. And then, from behind all of them, came that same whisper again, closer this time, almost in his ear. "Do you remember me?" Ethan stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen branch as the ground erupted in front of him. Hands, cold, gray, and shaking, clawed at the dirt, pulling themselves out of the earth one after another. Dozens of them. Men, women, children. Their faces were blank, smooth like wet clay, their movements jerky and uneven. He ran. His flashlight flickered wildly as he sprinted down the old road toward the courthouse. The fog swallowed the world around him. He couldn't see 5 feet ahead. He could hear them behind him, though, the scraping of feet on gravel, the sound of dry leaves being crushed by something that wasn't alive anymore. His heart pounded so loud it felt like thunder inside his ears. The courthouse loomed through the fog, its tall windows glowing faintly yellow, though no power had worked there for decades. The bell tower above it rang once, sending vibrations through the ground. When Ethan reached the steps, he stopped to catch his breath. The heavy double doors stood open. From inside, he could hear whispers, hundreds of them, murmuring the same words over and over. "It remembers, it remembers." He took a shaky step forward, shining his flashlight inside. Dust danced in the beam. The air was thick and cold, smelling like rain and old stone. The floor was covered in water puddles, though it hadn't rained in hours. "Mom, Dad," he called softly. His voice echoed through the empty hall. No answer. As he walked deeper into the courthouse, he noticed something strange on the walls, names carved into the stone. Dozens of them. Some he recognized from old photos and stories: Alice Moore, Henry Coleman, Caleb Harris. Then he saw 2 more names carved lower down, freshly cut into the stone: Linda Jacobs, Mark Jacobs. His parents. Ethan's heart dropped. No, 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 no. He touched the letters. They were damp, still fresh. A faint sound came from the second floor, footsteps, slow and uneven. He lifted his flashlight toward the stairwell. "Who's there?" The steps stopped. Then a woman's voice, soft and calm. "Ethan." He froze. "Mom." "Yes," she said. "Come upstairs." He hesitated, but his feet moved anyway, one step at a time. The staircase creaked beneath him. The whispering from downstairs grew quieter the higher he went, until there was only the sound of his own breathing. At the top of the stairs stood a long hallway lined with old portraits, judges, sheriffs, townspeople. Their eyes seemed to follow him as he passed. At the very end of the hall, a door stood slightly open. Warm light spilled from it, flickering like candlelight. He pushed the door open. Inside, his mother stood by the window. Her back was to him, her head bowed slightly. "I told you to stay inside," she said softly. "Mom," he whispered. "What's going on? What happened to Dad?" She didn't move. "It remembers, Ethan. It remembers what they did to me." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" She turned slowly, and when she did, he saw her face, only it wasn't her face anymore. Her eyes were gone. Her skin was pale gray, her lips blackened. "They buried me here," she whispered. "They thought they could forget. But now you remember too." Ethan backed away, shaking his head. "You're not my mom." The light in the room flickered, and for a second, everything changed. He wasn't in the courthouse anymore. He was standing in a field, 50 years in the past. The sky was red. A group of people stood around a pit, shovels in hand. Sheriff Coleman, the mayor, a few townsfolk, and a woman screaming as they forced her down into the ground. "Stop!" Ethan shouted, but his voice didn't come out. He was trapped, watching. The woman in the pit looked straight at him. Her eyes were the only thing alive in her pale face. "They called me evil," she said, "but they were the ones who lied." Dirt began to cover her face as they buried her alive. The vision snapped. Ethan gasped, finding himself back in the courthouse. The woman, his mother or whatever she had become, was standing inches away now. "You see now," she whispered. "They made me this way, and now you'll carry it too." She reached out her hand. Her touch was freezing, burning through his skin at the same time. He screamed and pulled back, stumbling into a broken bench. The bell above them rang again, louder than ever. The walls shook, dust raining from the ceiling. From outside came the sound of hundreds of footsteps. The dead had reached the courthouse. Ethan ran to the window and looked down. The entire town was covered in fog now. People, alive and dead, were walking side by side, their eyes empty, their faces blank. The courthouse doors burst open. The faceless ones entered, moving toward the stairs, silent and slow. Ethan turned back to the creature wearing his mother's face. "You don't have to do this," he said. She smiled faintly. "It's already done." The floor cracked open beneath them, splitting the courtroom in half. Ethan grabbed onto the railing as pieces of wood fell into the darkness below. The woman stood perfectly still as the world around her broke apart. "Tell them the truth, Ethan," she said. "Tell them what they buried." Then she vanished in a flash of light. The fog outside began to rise higher, swallowing the courthouse completely. The sound of the bell echoed one last time, then stopped. When Ethan opened his eyes, it was morning. The sun shone through broken windows. The fog was gone. The town was silent. He stumbled outside, covered in dust, looking around in disbelief. Everything looked normal again. No footsteps, no whispers, just quiet. But when he looked down the main street, his stomach turned cold. Every house had a name carved into its front door, and on his hand, etched faintly into the skin, were 3 words. It remembers still.